Well, anyways, this is the good old SpaceX. I don't know if this is the most recent launch or a previous one, but I just thought
Oh,
it'd make a good background. But to answer a few of your questions you had about the uniquity of this vehicle, is that previously rockets have looked like this.
yeah, I looked up some old launches today, and I completely forgot that that's how they looked. Like there was like that shuttle.
Yep, that is the shuttle and space shuttle.
Yeah.
And the reason it's made that way is for the sake of reentry, is that you can glide it down like a plane and it can land on a runway. You can get the crew back that way, and you can reuse the actual capsule. So the thing that
Okay.
stores supplies for the space station, that houses the astronauts, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice.
The problem with these is that big old massive thing it's attached to.
Yeah.
That's the method of getting into space, and it's basically just a bunch of massive fuel containers with rockets on them and stuff.
Right.
And the reason rockets are so complicated, they talk about rocket science being like the hardest thing ever, is like the sort of theme. Like it ain't rocket science, son.
Right. Right.
The reason it's so complicated basically comes down to this: is that in order to get high into the up into the atmosphere and then to orbit, you need to have a lot of fuel, but
Yes.
fuel has weight. So the more fuel you have, the heavier your shuttle is, the more fuel you need, and the higher you go, the less the gravitational pull of the core of the Earth affects you. So they can
Okay.
calculate that, and okay, but once we get here, it's here, and the amount of friction you experience changes because different layers of the atmosphere have different density and are made up
Gotcha.
of different things. So it's this constantly changing equation. And I really like equations, so I pulled, not that I understand this at all, I pulled out a an equation about that's
I know what that
got
is.
something to do with how rockets launch, and I just like equations. I don't understand it,
I
but
actually don't know what that is.
I'm sure you do. You're lying to me. So that's what makes rockets so complicated, and what they've been doing for about 30 years with this method, more than 30. They've been, this gets the shuttle way up into the atmosphere, and then they just ditch this entire thing
Hmm.
into the ocean, basically, or maybe and let it burn up in the atmosphere.
Okay.
Should probably
Yeah,
go back.
that was one of my questions because the SpaceX, they were like one of the or the first. I honestly don't know, but like the first stage coming back to like land on a point. Like I remember that being a huge deal with SpaceX. Is like stage one
Yeah.
coming back to Earth, um, and then yeah, I was curious about what happened like back in these shuttle days with the big fuel tanks. Like, I mean, yeah, do they just burn up? Do they just fall back to Earth?
Well, the current one I know does burn up in the atmosphere. So
Okay.
you've got, this is the Dragon, and you've got the, I keep forgetting people can't see my mouse. Here we go. So down here, what you got is the thing that gets reused. So this replaces the massive orange thing on that.
Okay.
And it's reusable, which is very economical because
Hmm.
it's expensive to make them. So this doesn't go high enough into the atmosphere to really burn up. It just gets the rocket off that initial stage, and that's what they land back onto the barge. And that was a huge
Right.
deal. I remember people calling him crazy when he proposed this.
Yeah.
And now they've had something like a few dozen successful launches with these things.
Yeah. I mean, think about how much money that's saving that they don't have to like completely destroy
Yeah.
like a fuel source or like
Yeah.
a tank or a rocket. They don't have to completely destroy it every single time. If they can just get it back down to Earth, much further down the road when we're talking about going to Mars or something,
It's way
like we
better.
could, yeah, it would just be way easier, more economical.
Yeah, it's unimaginable how much time is saved. And then you
Yeah.
can't, it's kind of blurry on this, but this is the second stage thing, so that's just another thruster. So
Right.
this pops off and goes and lands, and then this gets the capsule here the rest of the way, and then
Hmm.
this detaches and burns up in the atmosphere.
So that does burn up in the atmosphere.
It does. The second stage launch pod does.
Okay.
This
All right.
final,
That's what I was curious
and
about.
then this final thing just has tiny little engines for the sake of redirecting and
Okay.
steering.
So they get all of their momentum like they get themselves into space, and then the tiny pod is just kind of for redirecting.
Exactly.
They already have their speed and everything.
And the other advantage of this is this whole thing is much more aerodynamic than this shuttle because
Yeah,
yeah,
looks like it.
because this has to be able to land and re-enter. The capsule lands in the ocean, so you can have just a big point, and that makes it much more efficient to get out of to reach escape velocity.
Okay.
So that's the huge advantage of this. And I also saw something interesting is with the capsule. Let me bring up another picture. The way it lands, I didn't get a good picture of these. So it lands with those parachutes in the ocean, and they intentionally make it so that instead of it landing flat, it's at an angle, so that the corner of it hits first, so there's less surface tension build.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they're not smacking as hard when they
right.
land.
It's the
That makes
difference
more
between a
sense.
dive and a belly flop.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is an image of it docking. We're getting ready. I can't. I don't think that's a photo. I think it's concept art.
Gotcha.
I can't actually
Yeah.
tell.
It's pretty clear.
It's
I
really
mean,
good art.
it's really nice. Um, yeah, dude, they had I don't want to skip ahead. I don't know what you've
Oh
got
no,
with
please,
your
please.
slides, but their trip was like 19 hours. And were they catching up to the ISS? Like they were orbiting like fast enough to like catch up to it, or like how did they reach the ISS? I'm curious.
So they predict where it's going to be more or less because
Okay.
the ISS orbits. I think what is it, like 20 something times a day. And
Whoa.
this thing, they rearrange it. I think the stage 2 thruster angles it a bit as it leaves the atmosphere to get some of its momentum that way. And
Yeah.
then the thrusters on the capsule reorient itself so that eventually the two of them, the space station and this capsule, end up kind of like this. And then this thing speeds up a little bit and docks with it from behind. So same concept as like a refueling craft, if you've ever seen that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Same idea. A lot of math, basically. A lot of predicting, and they
Yeah,
know
I mean,
exactly where it's
geez,
going to
man.
be.
Just like perfectly timing everything to meet up. I
Yes.
also like they made it seem like everything was super automated. Like I'm sure like the was it Doug and Bob? I'm sure they had a lot that they had to do, but it seems like everything was very automated.
As much as I know, it is now.
Yeah,
Again, the first time they did all this, they had like basically no computing power,
right.
and now that's made a lot of things much easier. Is how good computers are. And I do know this is this first spacecraft that is using like touch screens instead
I
of
was gonna
just big
say, dude, did you see
knobs.
those screens?
Oh yeah, super fancy looking. And the I read a thing of the astronauts were saying it felt weird controlling a craft with those because there's no feedback.
Yeah. What's interesting is like when we're playing live music, we have like the big console soundboard. Um, and they also make the same version on an iPad. And it's kind of tough to use the iPad because you have these sliders that you can't be as precise with like a touch screen slider as you can with like an analog slider.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder, um, if it's the same kind of like difficulties on the touchscreen that they had in there, but they're probably not making like complicated maneuvers on the touchscreen or something.
Yeah, he said there were other benefits to it, like
Okay.
that outweighed the negatives, but that at first it was weird for them because
Yeah.
up until now everything's been done analog, and all the other flights SpaceX has made have just been launching satellites or launching supplies. This is the first manned one, so it's never had to be piloted per se.
Have you gotten confirmation on the live?
I still haven't. Um, I don't know where to look though. It's not on my channel, but I don't think it was last time either.
Gotcha.
How about you?
No, I'm just refreshing and checking it out to see if it is. I do remember being able to kind of see some comments last time and pull up the live
Right.
feed, so I'm curious about it right now.
Well, I am recording it as a backup, so worst case scenario, we can
Cool.
upload this.
Okay, sweet.
Let me double check on something here. Stream. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, I've been so stoked to talk about this.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about the whole process because I don't know too much about all this.
Well, hey man, I mean it's still fun to talk about though, you know. We don't
Yeah,
have to be experts on it to just talk about it. It was for those who don't know, Adam and I used to live together back in the day, and I remember when we were living together was when the Neil deGrasse Tyson, what was his documentary, The Cosmos?
yes, the remake of Cosmos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That came out on Netflix, and I
Oh yeah, I do
remember
remember that.
that like catapulted. I'd always been pretty interested in space, but that like catapulted my interest in space. Like I was always, um, I mean, from then on, I was very interested. And when I saw that this launch was happening, the first manned launch from the U.S., I was like, well, I guess the first day it got canceled because of weather, um, and I wasn't going to be able to watch it that day, so I was kind of bummed. Um, and then when it got moved to the day that I was free, I was stoked to be able to watch it live.
Yeah, I remember that's also when we discovered Chris Hadfield, the guy, the Canadian guy on the International Space
Oh
Station.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that was my first experience with like people giving a tour of the ISS. It
yeah,
was,
me
it was
too.
like, I mean, just seeing all of that for the first time. I mean, simple things like how do you eat? How do you eat in space? How do
Yeah,
you use the restroom in space? How do you sleep? Like their sleeping situation is really cool. Just a freaking like sleeping bag tethered to a wall. Like it doesn't matter if you're laying down.
yeah.
It's a common theme
Lying,
throughout.
lying down, Matt. Lying down, not laying.
Excuse me.
Well,
Excuse me.
I still don't. I don't know if we're live or not. We might.
Well, look, I'll tell you what. I'd also be willing to take it from the top if you want to.
Settings. You know what we did? I remember last time we did it for a bit and then stopped it, and it like posted it, and then when we restarted it, everyone's like, "No, you guys were live last time. Why'd you restart it?" But we just can't. We can't see it. It says I'm streaming, but this program has done some strange things. Stream. It's my stream key. Let's just keep going. So,
Okay.
the Rockettes. So, what other? You had the question about you had the question about doing your business in space,
Doing, yeah.
and what's
Well,
that all
yeah.
about?
Specifically, like I just mentioned, I remember seeing the video on the ISS where they have the restroom and they got like all these hoses and all this stuff. So I kind of got an idea about that. But that pod was like really tiny. They gave a tour of it, like a separate tour. And they didn't say anything about a place to relieve themselves. And yeah, I was just really interested because it was a 19-hour trip, like a 19 hours of a trip. And then even when they dock with the ISS, there are all these procedures that they have to go through before they can get off. Like
Right.
I was just thinking if someone has to take a dump after 19 hours of not, and then like you have to wait for like another hour and a half while they just like checklist all these procedures before you can get off the pod, dude, I'd be so miserable. So yeah, I was curious about the pod.
So I did look into that. Apparently, this thing does have some new type of bathroom on it, and he
Okay.
said they didn't want to talk about it yet. They'd explain how well it worked when it got back. Previously, shuttles have had the same system the space station have, which is just basically a fan, because it's like a vacuum cleaner because things will float around.
Oh,
You can't.
that's space litter, dude. You can't just throw your.
It's the least of space is concerned.
There's like, if I know anything about space, there's not much of it. So
There's not much space in space.
as
It's
soon
just
as you like, as soon as one person puts their poop in space, everyone's gonna put their poop in like their McDonald's bags in space,
it's just going to
and then
end
it's
up on the windows of the space station. Just.
just like littered everywhere.
But another thing the guy said to your point about the 19-hour trip, he said typically these bathrooms in rockets typically astronauts don't use them. They just hold it because it's so uncomfortable to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And they just wait till they get to the space station. So he said he doesn't expect it to get much use.
Pure misery.
Pure
Pure
misery.
misery. I've
And that
gone
is,
on. I can't do a 2 hour trip without going to the bathroom. I can't. I have to pull over. I like to drink a lot of water, and I like to eat greasy food. So I cannot spend too much time away from a restroom, and that just seems like. And you know how like when you get close to home, like it
Oh,
really
yeah.
starts to land that you have to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
Imagine docking up to that station and you haven't gone for. Let's not even talk about the fact that they were on the ship for, or they were like on the rocket for probably.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
before launch. I mean, who knows?
yeah, I came in at an hour and they were already. I don't know when they got on, but at least an hour from what I saw. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
like 20 plus hours, and then you dock and you're like, get me off of this pod.
Well,
Maybe they take like supplements to just like clog their stomach up.
who knows, man? I bet they don't eat much before they go, or like
Yeah.
not things that would give you indigestion or whatever. But
Right.
so
Straight bread.
the last question you had was about those what were they called?
The super high tech zero G indicators.
The super high tech zero G indicators.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about those. It's just a way for them to check and see when they're in weightlessness territory. So it's a thing that's hanging there. If you get into weightlessness territory, you push it up a bit, and if it falls right back down, you're still in gravity. If not, it floats. And the reason that they're dinosaurs, I do not know. But they've
Well, what I read a little bit on it,
Okay.
and this one was they talked about like it was like their kids, like both Bob and Doug have sons, and they all agreed like this toy was going to be the one that came with them into space. But the article also said that there's like a storied history on toys in general being used as zero G indicators. So maybe like that storied history is dads or
Yeah, I would
moms like
assume.
taking their kids, like a piece of their child with them to space and using that. You know?
probably.
But I thought it was really interesting that it's like using toys as a zero G indicator is really clever.
Yeah.
Really funny.
Because you just need an object of any kind. So
It's cute.
might as well
Cute.
make it something sentimental. Since
Yeah.
everything else has to be like perfectly crafted to its purpose,
Yeah, and I didn't know that, and so like I was watching it live, and then like a Beanie Baby just like floats by the camera. I was like,
Space dinosaurs, they're real. So the shuttle, the space shuttle, has been a thing in pop culture for some time, and you're not quite as much of a a sci-fi geek as I am. So I wanted to test your knowledge on some classic space stuff here, on some spaceships.
okay,
So this is a very iconic one. What is this? What is the name and what is it from?
dude, that's Star Trek, right?
It is.
And I don't know what it's called. I know it's Star Trek. I don't know what it's called.
It is the USS Enterprise.
Okay, yeah. See, I know. I've heard of that.
Yeah, and I believe I'm not a huge Star Trek fan either, so I don't know if this is the same or different one from the Next Generation series, or if this is the old one that our dads grew up with. But that's what that is, the USS Enterprise. Now, what about this one? You might recognize this one more.
Okay. Does this one actually have a name?
It does.
All right. I know it's Futurama, right?
Yes, it's Futurama.
I don't know what it's called either.
There's a big hint on the
Planet, is it called the Planet Express?
It's called the Planet Express ship. Planet Express is the company they work for.
Okay, yeah, because they're like delivering stuff, right?
They are, and there's an episode that explains how this ship actually moves by moving the universe around it, which I thought is interesting because technically that's what all ships do, and that's what all motion is.
Okay.
I want to make a video on general relativity, but there's no difference between a ship moving through space and all space moving past it, because all motion is relative.
Okay.
There's-
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's no such thing as still or moving until you compare it to other things.
I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
That's totally true.
That's general relativity. When you ever hear that term that Einstein's famous for.
It's like, yeah, moving relative to Earth, but Earth is also moving and in this massive space.
Exactly. Or is it?
Yeah.
So, the last one here. What is this? I doubt you'll know this one.
Oh God.
This is from an old '90s game.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of
Jupiter Rising.
Jupiter Rising. No, this is from StarCraft. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. This is
I've heard of
called
it.
this is called the Hyperion. It's a battle cruiser from
I can tell.
StarCraft. Yeah,
I can tell by all the plasma cannons.
it don't look like no luxury yacht. So
Nah, it's not no luxury yacht for sure.
what did I get to all your questions that you texted me? I don't recall.
No, I had one more. And I
Okay.
want to ask you about this. First, while we're still on spaceships, I like the one from Interstellar. That's like the big circle where like
Oh
it's
yeah.
at the end of the movie with like all the farmland and stuff. I thought that one was really cool.
Okay. I actually
And,
haven't
and
seen. I never saw that movie.
you really should. It's a really cool movie.
Really?
But they I guess like applied the theory of like if it's spinning really fast, that people are kind of like gravity is like on the outsides, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, the artificial gravity through centrifugal force.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always liked that idea.
Yeah. That would be the
Um,
only way to achieve gravity in a spaceship by spinning something either having you stand on it like this or by having you stand on the outsides so that it's like swinging a bag with something in it over your
right.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that is cool. I'm looking at pictures of it now. That is cool that they actually attempted to explain it because in Star Wars and everything, they're just floors and you
They're
stand
just
on them.
just walking around.
Yeah, just doesn't make any sense, but
So my last question was pretty much regarding conspiracies about space.
oh right.
One of the first one that I saw was like, so I was watching the launch on Facebook Live. They
Hmm.
were streaming it on Facebook Live, and it's just like comments, 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 comments.
Yeah.
And then I saw one that was like a guy talking about the Van Allen belt and how like, oh, that's fake. Like, they're not, no one's going to space. No one could ever make it through the Van Allen belt. And I looked up, I mean, just briefly, what the Van Allen belt was. And it's like, um, is it like the most radiation in our atmosphere, or it's like a super, super high level of radiation? Are you familiar with it?
I am not familiar with it.
There's like an inner and an outer Van Allen belt, and this person was pretty much saying that there's no way that we could make it through space because we can't make it through the Van Allen belt because it's too much radiation. And the arguments against that is that we're just like going through it very quickly, and so like yeah, it's kind of like a high exposure to radiation, but you're going pretty quickly through it, so like it's not really going to affect. Kind of like if you were to go hang out at
Right.
like Chernobyl or something, like you're taking in a lot of radiation, but as long as you don't stick around for a long time, it's
Yeah.
fine.
I don't know anything about that specifically, but these things are designed to be heavily shielded against radiation because that's a big problem in space. Is there's ionizing radiation everywhere.
There's no protection from it
Right, we're
with
protected
that
on the Earth because of the atmosphere, so they have to build these things specifically for that. It might be like yeah, like you said, they go through it for half a second, which high amounts of exposure to radiation can be a problem, but we get it from a lot of sources. Even flying in a plane increases your exposure a bit,
Yeah, yeah, I heard that.
just because there's less atmosphere above you when you're higher up. So I mean, when it comes to conspiracy theories, I'm just an Occam's razor guy, which is like, okay, I don't know for a fact if they landed on the moon. Like, I didn't go and watch them and all this, but I'm
Right.
like 99.999% sure. It's like, what makes more sense, that it happened or that there's this huge conspiracy that everyone I know is in on, you know?
What did the Chili Peppers say? Space may be the final frontier, but it was made in a Hollywood basement.
Oh yeah, they did say that. I don't know. Maybe it is all fake, but I don't think so.
Yeah. The other thing that I read about, it might have even been just like another comment. Um, but it was regarding the fact that when we went to the moon, there was like a 2 minute frame of time where like the communications dropped. And people say that in that 2 minutes time, the aliens met with our astronauts and told them never come back to the moon, don't come back here. And I think there are some people that swear by that, so I'm interested to hear
Some
what some people's perspectives are on that. I'm sure you'll get something in the comments about it.
who are some people that swear by it?
Say what?
These some people swear by it. Who is that?
Internet folk.
Ah,
Just
the most trustable of all
yeah,
of all
yeah,
folk.
us. It's literally us right now.
That's true. That's true. So, if you trust other people for saying it is a conspiracy, then you also have to trust me because I'm on the internet too. When I say I don't think it is.
It's probably
I
not.
just have to wonder, like, what would aliens, when people talk about aliens visiting on us and stuff, like, what's their
Yeah.
incentive? Because they could clobber us if they had the tech to.
If they had the tech to just get here, they could clobber us.
Right, they'd be bending the fabric of space time. I mean, they'd
Right.
be so far above us. Maybe we're just a zoo to them. There's that theory.
Right.
It's like a
Yeah.
lion coming too close to like the glass, and it's like, go away, lion.
Right.
Um,
I'm of the mindset that they definitely exist elsewhere, but
right.
I feel like they probably wouldn't have the technology to get here.
They could be at any stage of primitiveness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe they could be far more advanced than us.
Yeah,
I
they could be
mean,
far more
maybe,
advanced than us and still not be able to get anywhere near. Like,
yeah, true. Because yeah, but I don't know. You know what? I don't know.
I
And
don't
you
know.
know what? Neither does anyone else. Area
Uh,
51's just a bunch of sand. What?
we almost found out. We got so close, didn't we?
No, dude.
So let's see what other notes did I pull here.
Almost
Let's
broke
do a
into there.
real quick Q&A. And you actually mentioned this earlier, so you might be able to answer this one.
Yeah.
What kind of fuel does the Falcon 9 use?
It's geez, I don't know, man. It's multiple levels. I know there's well, maybe it's like one fuel and then other things are used to like cool it down or to like I know helium's involved and I don't know why I remember that, but like there's a multi-stage because that's the thing. They were filling up the rocket until like a minute and a half. Like T minus 1 minute. Like they were filling up the rocket literally until like the last minute almost. And that blew my mind because they like I guess just the way like
Pressure's on.
everything like I don't know. I don't know because I'm not a rocket scientist.
If I had to
But
guess, I would think that might be because like this fuel is so unstable that
yeah.
they can't leave it sitting there, so they really have to,
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
get it at the
You're putting
last
into
second.
words kind of what I'm thinking. For sure.
Yeah. I don't know though. The answer though, from what I saw, is that it's mostly liquid oxygen,
Okay.
which I thought was interesting, and sometimes kerosene. I'm sure all that other stuff is involved in it. Again, I don't know much about rocket engines. They're insanely complicated.
Kerosene.
Yeah, same stuff that just makes typical jets go.
Yeah. And I remember like back in the day my dad had just like a kerosene heater in the house. I mean,
Oh, really?
is that the same kind of kerosene or are they like different levels?
Maybe less refined.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Makes sense.
question number two: how far from the surface of the Earth is the International Space Station's orbit?
50 miles.
254 miles,
Okay.
which is insanely close in
Yeah,
astronomical terms.
I figured that it would be closer than I would expect, and that's why I kind of shot low. Um, but 250 miles is still it's crazy close.
It's impossible to wrap your head around that much distance. But for comparison, the moon is 238,000 miles.
Right.
So
Speaking of the moon, I just found out that it only takes 3 days to get there.
it does in with rockets, yeah.
I thought it would have been like at least a week. It only takes 3 days. That's crazy.
Well, it depends on. So once you get into space, nothing stops your movement. So the only reason things fall on Earth is because of gravity and because of drag. So there's there's gas here, so you have to push through that, kind of like swimming.
Okay. Yeah.
And also the core of the Earth is pulling us towards it via gravity. So
Yeah.
you have to fight those two things to move. And as humans, we spend our whole lives here, so we think of movement as this thing you have to try to do. In the
Right.
vacuum of space, when you start moving, you don't stop until you hit something or something else acts on you.
An alien spaceship.
So the advantage of space travel is once you start moving, you just keep going in that direction, and any additional thrust you use just adds to that speed. So that's why it's so easy for them
Whoa.
to get to the moon, because once they break out of once
Any
they reach escape
additional
velocity.
thrust increases that speed.
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yeah, which is why you need very powerful engines, because like if you just put a jet engine on the back of a space shuttle that's already moving like 5,000 miles an hour, it's not going to add anything, because the force provided by that engine is less than you're already going. So they need
Okay.
a bigger engine and a bigger one and a bigger one, and eventually we can get to the point, I think, with our current shuttles where they move like 0.001% light speed or something, which is really fast. So that was 254 miles away.
Okay.
Because it was such a huge hit last time, I brought up a few space-themed album covers.
Nice. David Bowie. David Bowie's on one of them. Guaranteed.
Well, man, we'll have to see here. What is this?
This looks like the aliens are here, and the aliens are here and they're friendly.
Interesting,
I think
interesting.
that's what it's called,
The actual title is Third Stage by
yeah.
Boston.
Oh, Boston. Oh, interesting. So last time I asked you, how did you find these album covers? What you told me was I just Google searched album covers. So can I ask you if the way you found these album covers is you Google searched album covers space?
Yes, and a variety of other terms like album covers, rockets, and space-themed album. Yeah,
Okay.
some
All right.
album
Well, I don't
covers.
know how else you would find it anyway, so that makes sense.
I mean, I don't have a music store near me, so I can't just go and look for them.
This one reminds me of what was the what's the spaceship that we fight on in Smash Bros? Corn.
Oh, Corneria.
Yeah,
That's
the corn.
that's Great Fox. I should have shown you that one. It's from
Yeah.
Star Fox.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking. That's what this really reminded me of. Star Fox. Do a barrel roll.
I don't see it, but okay.
Well, maybe
Similar.
look.
Maybe look. I still don't see it. Anyways,
What's Boston even getting at here?
what is this one titled?
Oh my God. I'll tell you what I see.
What do you see?
I see. Well, I'll start with what's obvious.
Okay.
A horse in a spaceship is the first thing I see. Um,
Well, I thought it was a dog.
oh, it could be like one of those dogs that have like the really like the target dog that had the red eye,
Or like your dog, like a big snout.
or like my dog. But
like
really, I mean, you're asking me, right? So I'd say it's a horse.
Of course.
And I think everyone in the comments will agree that this is a horse.
Okay.
I see I see multiple planets. Okay, all right, and the rocket ship is kind of being boosted by not fuel, however, musical notes, and I really
Oh, I didn't even notice
appreciate
that.
traveling.
I didn't notice.
Traveling. Ooh, the speed of sound.
Oh,
Could be a good guess.
traveling at the speed of sound.
Yeah,
I like that.
right.
I like that.
Ah,
It's actually Bella Fleck and the Fleck Tones, Rocket Science.
Do you think that there will ever be a point in time where I just nail it? Like I just like
Well, I think this next one you have a really good chance at.
let me first point out. Can you go back to that one?
Okay.
Is that the Kool-Aid Man?
Where?
Bottom right of the rocket, the red.
I
Is
don't
that the Kool-Aid
know.
Man?
That is I mean, it's like some strange thing.
I think that's got it. Or maybe like a
I
hippo.
have no it looks like a hippo. Like on
Maybe a
its
hippo.
side, like those are its teeth, you know.
Yeah, the verdict's out.
And
It's either.
it's a hipster hippo cuz it's got a hipster hat, like one of those the art
Oh, you're
things.
seeing it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of those Parisian.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
It's a hipstro.
All right, Bella Fleck. Maybe reconsider to traveling at the speed of sound.
I like traveling at the speed of sound much better. I think that it's a much more worthy title for this album. No offense to the Flecktones. I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they're great. And now, Matt, we move on to. I think you got a good chance. This one's very straightforward. This is just very straightforward.
Okay, so it's obviously a constellation of a uh, rocker, just your straightforward general rocker. Um, I see a galaxy, what I guess looks like maybe the Milky Way there. Oops.
My bad.
Um, here's where I'm going. So, my favorite constellation, Orion's Belt.
Okay.
This kind of reminds me of like Orion's Melt because it's like melting faces,
Okay.
like this stuff right here. So I'm gonna go with Orion's Melt. Those are
Oh.
Orion's melting face. Orion melts faces.
You overthought it significantly. It's actually space rock.
What?
Space rock. He's rocking out. He's got a guitar.
No.
It's a
Take me
guy with a
back to that.
guitar.
Who's the band? What is this?
The band is. I actually did write it down. It was. Let's see here. It was
Psychotropic what?
psychotropic shenanigans.
You would think with a band name, Psychotropic Shenanigans, they would have a better album name than Space Rock. And I
Space rock.
think that they should reconsider to Orion Melts Faces,
Orion Melts Faces.
or just Orion's Melt.
I
I
kind of
think,
like the straightforwardness of space rock.
yeah, yeah. And again, no offense to Psychotropic Shenanigans. I'm sure your album's fantastic, and I mean, clearly just by looking at it, it looks metal.
I agree.
But maybe just Orion's Melt.
Well, the last one here. What do you think of this one?
It's just a picture of the Milky Way. I've got no other. Oh, Jesus Christ, dude.
You ruined it again, man. Just like with the donut. Did you really know, or were you just saying?
No, I didn't know. I was just saying.
You
Just
because
like
you
the
said it's
donut.
just a picture of the Milky Way, and it is.
I've got to stop.
You
You know
gotta.
what,
You
Adam?
know me way too well. It
I
scares
say
me.
this every day. I've got to stop being so smart.
Yeah.
I'm too smart,
Yeah,
and that's an issue.
that
I
is an
think.
issue.
You know what? I think maybe I should be a rocket scientist at this point.
I think probably you did. You
Dude,
knew that
you
equation earlier.
really tried to get me with just a picture of the Milky Way galaxy.
I thought it was gonna be so funny because I was gonna be like, Matt, this is just a picture of the Milky Way. I thought you were gonna come up with like the vortex of the heaven.
Just like the freaking donut, dude.
Just
If
like
you
the
guys
donut.
haven't seen the first episode that we did on data storage, watch that because I freaking nailed Adam again on his psychotropic shenanigans.
He did. He did.
You're trying to pull your shot psychotropic shenanigans on me.
I did. Well, that is everything that I had prepared, I believe. Did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask the master before we take this over to our other brand new channel that I have yet to make?
I think I don't want to come back. Oh, dude, you know what? Before we go, in the realm of conspiracy theories, did you watch the rocket, the stage one land on the barge? Did you see that?
I did not. I've seen that before. I didn't see it this time.
Go back and watch it because I don't want to get too conspiracy on your butt,
Okay.
but it goes black for a second. It's like like an image of like this barge in the ocean. It's just like floating around, big waves and stuff. And they're like, it's gonna land any second. And the image cuts, and they like take it like to like the control room with all these people like on their computers and stuff. Like that's like their B-roll shot whenever they lose footage.
Yeah, right.
And then it comes back, and the rockets on the barge could very well be a conspiracy. Guys, dig into it. But also, I know that there's like from the other videos that I've seen of like the stage one rocket that comes down, there's like a massive boom that happens. Like it releases like a lot of energy to slow itself down for the landing.
Oh,
Like right before it lands, it's like boom,
yeah.
and
See, I've
just
seen
like
that's what I've seen on the other ones,
yeah,
on
yeah,
previous
just to
ones.
like drastically like slow itself down before it lands. So that's probably what cut the footage. But I thought that was really interesting because like I was excited to see it. Like they were like counting down from when that thing was going to land, and it just like the footage cut, went to a bunch of dorks on their computers, came back, the rocket had landed, and I was super bummed.
That's rough.
So go back and watch that. I don't have any other questions other than that.
Okay.
Um, I'm super excited about moving over to the other channel. Um, yeah, yeah, it's going to be really
Sweet.
cool. I've also got I'm starting some social media, so I think I'll probably do my first post today. Just something related to what we're talking about tonight. So if you guys want to find us on Instagram, our Instagram is Basics
Yeah, I
Explained
saw that.
Pod as of right now. Subject to change. We might change it. But as of right now, our Instagram is Basics Explained Pod, and you can go follow us, and we'll have some more. We'll have some content on there soon.
Nice. Well, thank you again, guys. Again, I'm going to go back. I'm not abandoning the typical videos I've been making. Those are going to continue. I'm going to get better about uploading those. I've got one that I hope to have done this week. And again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everything as usual. And I will see you guys when we bring this party over to the Basics Explained podcast.
Woohoo!